Okay, you know what time it is. Today on the Precon Chop Shop, we're taking a look at Sliver Swarm, the first Commander Masters Precon that was revealed yesterday, or 2 days. Something. Timing is weird. As always, the goal of these Chop Shop videos is to talk about the new cards and the valuable reprints in the Precon and to see whether it's best to buy the Precon to upgrade, take apart for singles, or if you should just get a different Precon instead if you're on a tight budget like I am and can't afford to buy all of them. Or you don't want to let wizards get all of your money. So let's start with the face commander. Sliver Gravemother is a 6/6 legendary sliver for WooBurg that says the legend rule doesn't apply to slivers you control. Each sliver creature card in your graveyard has Encore X, where X is its mana value. Then it itself has Encore 5. Encore says exile this card from your graveyard. For each opponent, create a token copy that attacks that opponent this turn if able. They gain haste. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. Activate only as a sorcery. So Slivers may be the most infamous tribe in Magic the Gathering, right next to Infect players, with pilots often finding themselves immediately in the crosshairs of the rest of the table. So it shouldn't be a surprise that many of your Slivers will wind up in your graveyard. And thanks to the Gravemother, you can create a copy of any of those slivers in the graveyard that attacks each of your opponents, taking advantage of some of the more devastating ETB effects and synergies that slivers always bring to the table. Breaking the legend rule is great if your deck has enough legendaries to make it worth it, but there are only 5 other legendary slivers, and only 2 of those have effects that will stack and will benefit from multiple copies being on the field. The recursion is what makes this commander terrifying, and I'd argue that she's almost the same level as the first sliver because of the value that can be gained at a very low cost. In my opinion, this is a fantastic face commander. The secondary commander is Ruka Rumel Biologist, a 3/3 legendary human wizard for WooBurg that says as she ETBs, choose a creature type. Slivers and non-token creatures you control are the chosen type in addition to their other creature types. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. Then you can pay 3 and tap it to create a 1/1 colorless sliver creature token, which will also be the chosen creature type since it's a sliver. Now, have you ever heard or seen of the Morophon Lord tribal deck, where you add a bunch of lords that make your changelings ridiculously powerful? Cards that say like, goblins you control get, or elves you control have, things like that. That's kind of what we're getting here. Tribal, and it's wide open as to what can be done with it. You choose your favorite tribe, like say humans, and then add in your favorite humans alongside the best slivers to the deck. Then you plop this commander down and name slivers as your creature type. All of a sudden, your humans all gain the synergistic benefits that slivers gain naturally, and the deck suddenly becomes absolutely terrifying. Maybe you choose elves instead and just become an utterly gross commander deck. Ruka is a fantastic buy as a single because of its versatility and the cheap availability of cards that can make the deck viable. This will probably be the first commander I build around, and I'll choose the weirdest tribe to pair with it. The third secondary commander is the Sliver Hivelord, a 5/5 legendary sliver that gives your slivers indestructible. Now, this is a great include in any sliver deck, but with indestructible becoming weaker and weaker as exile effects become more and more prevalent, it's less effective than it used to be. This is a valuable reprint, but a sliver deck doesn't need this to be effective, and since it's included in the Precon, I don't see a reason to pick this up as a single, and honestly, I expect the price to go pretty low. Next are the rest of the new cards in the Precon. First, we're just going to list the new slivers and see if they're decent pickups as singles if you already have a sliver deck, since they won't exactly fit in any other deck. Hatchery Sliver is a cheap 2/2 with Replicate. Replicate says when you cast this spell, copy it for each time you paid its replicate cost. Then it also gives your sliver spells replicate. The cost is equal to their mana cost. What you get here is a bunch of ETB effects if you have a few slivers on the field already. Pretty decent for a single card in which you can get multiple triggers at the cost of 1 and a green for each time you replicate it. Sliver Queen costs a couple $100, will never be reprinted, and only spits out 1/1 slivers for the same cost, but it doesn't buff your other slivers. This is an amazing single and a great buy if you don't have Sliver Queen. Capricious Sliver costs 3 in a red and gives your Slivers, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Now, Impulse Draw is fine in the right deck, but Slivers might not be that deck. Even if you have Gemhide out, your Slivers would be tapped when you swing and can be tapped for mana to play the exiled cards after combat. Mana resources to pay for all of the cards you might be exiling if you alpha swing with all of these Slivers might be the biggest problem if you choose to run this card. I don't see this being a popular single, and it'll be among the first Slivers that you swap out if you decide to upgrade this for better cards. And speaking about unpopular things being swapped out for something better, if you like what you've seen so far, why don't you hit that like button and sub to the channel? It'll help these videos get out to more people who will enjoy them and help the channel grow at the same time. Thanks. Lazotep Sliver is pretty wild. It's a 4/4 for 3 and a black that says, Slivers you control have Afflict 2. Afflict says whenever a creature with Afflict 2 becomes blocked, defending player loses 2 life. Then it says whenever a non-token Sliver you control dies, amass Slivers 2. Amass says put 2 1/1 counters on an army you control. It's also a Sliver. If you don't control an army, create a 0/0 black Sliver army creature token first. I really liked the Afflict mechanic in Amonkhet, and I was really bummed that it wasn't on better cards and expanded upon later, but I guess they made up for that here. I love this single because it damages your opponents no matter what, and when your Slivers die, you get to make a bigger Sliver. It's just a really good pickup. Regal Sliver says, Slivers you control have, when this creature ETBs, Slivers you control get +1/+1 until end of turn if you're the Monarch. Otherwise, you become the Monarch. Now, thanks to Grave Mother, at the very least an Encore activation with 3 opponents will make you the Monarch and give your Slivers on the field +2/+2 as long as this works the way I think it does. But as a buffing Sliver, this isn't efficiently costed and the buff is temporary, so this side of it is for closing out a game. The main draw is, of course, putting the Monarch mechanic into your Sliver deck, and Monarch is always fun. This isn't a bad single, but there may be better Slivers for this slot, and I don't expect this particular Sliver to be really that popular, but Monarch is fun. And Taunting Sliver says, Sliver creatures you control have, when this creature ETBs, go target creature. Now, considering how many Slivers are created in a Sliver deck, it might become really easy to protect yourself from your opponent's stronger creatures and get your opponents to a lower life total, making it easier to finish out a game. This is especially true when creatures are tapped after attacking. I think this is a really good single. Now, those are the new Slivers, so now we'll talk about the new tribal support cards. Descendant's Fury is an enchantment for 3 and a red. It says whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice 1 of them. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card that shares a creature type with the sacrificed creature. And put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Now, who doesn't want to sacrifice tokens to get random creatures from your library directly onto the battlefield for free? Boros humans, Mardu vampires, red goblins, dragons, and who knows what other fringe tribe in red that utilizes tokens can all use this card to great effect. Dragons in particular, I think. Even 1 free dragon is terrifying. This is absolutely a great single to pick up, and I don't expect it to be cheap. For the Ancestors is an instant for 2 and a green that says, choose a creature type. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal any number of cards of the chosen type from among them and put the revealed cards into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Then it has flashback for 3 and a green. But now, this type of an effect isn't bad, but it's not really great either. This card is easily replaced by any card draw in green, so I don't think it'll be a popular single at all. Titan of Lityara, or Litjara, I think it's Lityara, is a 6/6 illusion for 4 blue. It says, as it ETBs, choose a creature type. Titan of Lityara is the chosen type in addition to its other types. Whenever it ETBs or attacks, you may draw a card for each other creature you control that shares a creature type with it. If you do, discard a card. Now, is this as crazy as I think it is? Depending on the tribe you're playing with, you can draw a stupid number of cards and then only discard 1. Then do it again if the Titan attacks. But it's in blue. Is 6 mana for a minimum draw 1, discard 1 worth the card slot. This might be pretty strong in a ninja deck when it can just come out for free, or an illusion deck just because it's an illusion, but I don't think it's worth the card slot if this card is just drawing cards in blue, right? I mean, we're in blue. There are better blue draw cards. It seems good, but I'm not confident in it. So as far as I can tell, those are the only new cards in the Precon. The notable reprints are, of course, the Sliver Hivelord that we talked about in a previous section. Synapse Sliver lets you draw cards when Slivers deal combat damage and is between $10 and $20. Gale Rider Sliver is a 1-drop that gives your Slivers flying, that's about $7. Crystalline Sliver gives your Slivers Shroud for $5. Realm Walker has Changeling, so it's every creature type, making it great for any tribal deck in green. It's sitting at about $5 right now. Bone Scythe Sliver gives Slivers Double Strike for $4. Shifting Sliver basically makes your Slivers unblockable for $4. Brood Sliver doubles your Sliver count on combat damage for $5. And then our non-Sliver reprints. 3 Visits is a card that's needed in a 5-color deck, and its price reflects that at around $4. The artifact reprints for this deck are interesting because we've seen them in Precons in each of the past 2 sets, which I think is pretty unusual. Herald's Horn and Vanquisher's Banner are still around $5, but they were in the Riders of Rohan Human tribal deck and the Cavalry Charge Knight tribal deck in each of the other sets. Now, let's talk about that absolutely pitiful mana base. A 5-color commander deck needs fixing, and in a premium-priced Precon, this one is $100. A lot of equity should be put into the mana base to make the deck work quickly and smoothly. Canopy Vista, Cinderglade, Prairie Stream, Smoldering Marsh, and Sunken Hollow are the only non-basic lands that can ETB untapped, but you need 2 basics on the field for that to work. This deck has 11 basics, so the odds of you having 2 on the field when one of these comes out isn't that great. Then we have the slow fetches that will fix your mana if you tap and sack the land to do so, but those lands enter tapped, so you can't fetch the lands until your next turn. The tri-lands can't be fetched and enter tapped, making them just feel awful to play. Secluded Courtyard, Exotic Orchard, and Unclaimed Territory are the best lands in the deck, and that is really sad. The result is a classically strong Sliver tribal deck with some great reprints that are staples in Sliver decks, but what you're going to find is that if you buy and upgrade this Precon, all of your money is going into the mana base, and that is exceedingly expensive, especially for a 5-color deck that already costs you $100. Because the mana base is so bad, I'm actually not a fan of buying this Precon, and if I build a Sliver deck someday, I'll just pick up the singles. In the end, this is a great tribe, a bad mana base, and Ruka Rumel is an extremely interesting commander and the highlight single of the deck for me. I don't know what Precon is next, but look forward to it anyway. For now, like the video if you liked the video, dislike it if you disliked it, and until next time, I'm Space Coconut, and you're welcome.